What's up, upstanders? Dr. O here, and another weekend we're having another air emergency, tragedy, disaster, however you want to describe it. I don't know, but we see that another SpaceX jet rocket has exploded, raining debris over parts of the Caribbean, and there are so many things that we have to talk about as relates to this. This is the second time in a few weeks that has happened, and we are seeing that when this happens, that debris is falling all over parts of the Caribbean. Some stories talking about people finding things in their parking lot. Some things fell off the roof of their homes. Luckily, no casualties have been reported yet. But another thing that's also happening directly as relates to, and this is like in the Bahamas and other places, and another thing that's happening on the U.S., directly on the U.S. mainland, is that flights are being delayed because they have to be diverted. So, Florida was affected by this. The the rocket flew out of Texas. Florida was affected by this. Other states were affected by this. Not only the delays, but flights that are in the air having to be diverted because of potential falling debris. What the hell? Like, there are so many questions that come to mind. The first question is, why aren't these routes already being diverted, or flights not being scheduled over potential SpaceX launches? Number two, which is actually should have been number one, why are these SpaceX launches happening over places where they can fly over that are populated? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It doesn't make sense for people in the Caribbean. It doesn't make sense for people on the ground in the United States as well. Also, who cleans up this stuff? One lady, I was reading a story, she was gathering some of this material before the government, I think she's in Turks and Caicos, before they told them, don't gather it. There could be hazardous stuff to your health. Could be toxic in some way, shape, or form. They don't know. Who's gathering this stuff? And people are finding things in places that are like miles away from the crash because they landed in the water and floated. So right now, we are seeing situations where there are rocket materials on beaches, in forests, and other places that are not being picked up. They're not being cleaned up. And on top of that, over time, they could be covered with sand and just be there and just seep in, destroy the environment in that way, shape, or form as well. This is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And, my hope and my prayer, which is what everybody hopes, is that no plane gets hit by falling debris from an exploding rocket. But with what's going on with the FAA and the cuts and some of the incompetence they've demonstrated on certain things, I'm concerned that they're not always going to be able to catch these things. And if that's going to be the case, similar to what they did with the Black Hawk helicopter at DCA, when they decided that no more helicopters are going to fly in that particular area, they need to have SpaceX have a more reliable program of making sure that they are not flying their test rockets over sites that are inhabited by people. People anywhere. Elon Musk is rich. He's a billionaire. He can build something somewhere else and have these rockets test off, deserted islands, deserted areas. But he also needs to be made responsible for cleanup. Because of some of these stories on the Caribbean, he's not been SpaceX and, his company has not been Starlight, or, whoever has not been responsible for cleaning up this debris. That should be criminal. And there's a certain threshold they have to meet and so on and so forth. It's just a matter of time before this debris falls somewhere. What if it hits a cruise ship? My wife is just on a cruise, just last week. Like, what if it hits a cruise ship? What if people are actually on those beaches that this debris is falling on? Because this is the second explosion that at least has, have parts have fallen on the Caribbean, right? People can die from this. They can die from possible exposure when these things hit. These can land on people's houses. I know at least one story talked about somebody's car being damaged. This is irresponsible. And for a guy like Elon Musk, who said maybe it's going to take some plane crashes before, America gets serious about whatever XYZ he was talking about, this is a guy who doesn't really care. He has kind of a mad scientist mind. Just like, this is just part of the process. This is not fair. This should not be part of the process for people in the air flying. This should not be a process for people on the ground in places like the Caribbean and in places like Florida and the like. And there should be real consequences when something like this happens. And the FAA said it's going to investigate, but y'all really think FAA is going to do anything when Musk is in charge of it? Basically, because he's in charge of everything as it relates to the government right now. They're already getting rid of investigations against criminals, against people running Ponzi schemes, against people running so many different things. And so many of his other investigations have already been destroyed. So I can't really see anything that's really going to happen under this FAA. But Americans and everybody should be very nervous about this. Should be very nervous about this. Because I don't feel like the FAA is doing its job. SpaceX is definitely not doing its job. And real lives are at risk. I mean, fine, airline delays. Everybody's used to airline delays. Those things happen. But if you have flight paths already scheduled out and potential falling debris, certain flights shouldn't even be canceled. What if something gets missed? What if something gets missed? And we need to speak up and demand that they do more, because I don't have the greatest of confidence in this FAA, and I don't have the greatest of confidence in Musk and and SpaceX doing what they need to do to keep people safe. And we have to continue to demand that they do more. And European governments, because he's flying over some European territories as well, need to do more. But the people of the Caribbean deserve better than this. They're having their islands and their whole entire environment destroyed by falling debris from rocket ships. And if these places are good enough for folks to vacation in, they should be good enough for people to advocate for there to be some type of safety so people aren't being harmed as it relates to this as well. Peace.